Hey everyone, welcome to Africa Media, the biggest media platform for all things Eyecare on the African continent. I'm Obi Malope, an optometrist based here in South Africa, the motherland. And of course today, you're wondering, who is this person sitting in front of me? But well, this is Sanet Riekart. We're taking things completely different today. She's not an optometrist. She will introduce herself to you very shortly. But when I was in university, and I believe that this applies to a lot of you, we struggled with so much attention was invested in the clinical aspect of our journey as well as the academic aspect of our journey. And only when we got to final year university or of our studies where the business aspect of what our journey is going to look like started getting attention. A lot of us at the time started feeling like it is a bit too late when we're only getting exposure to the business side of running an optometry practice or a healthcare practice for that matter. Because at that stage, you just can't wait to get through all the clinical work. So what we decided to do is that instead of you having to wait until you're 3 or 4 years into practice, we brought Sanet here. She's going to unpack a few key aspects of the financial aspects of our eye care journey. This will be like an introductory conversation, touching on a few elements that I believe many of us struggled with earlier on in our career. And I'm fully confident that today, a lot of uncertainty will be sorted out. A lot of confusion will be sorted out as we're going to have such a fun, interactive, but most importantly, thought-provoking conversation that will benefit you, that young optometrist or ophthalmologist who is planning on being a business owner one day by opening up your optometry practice or your ophthalmology practice. But enough about that. Hope you enjoyed this episode because I'm fully excited about the content, the information that you're going to gain from it because she does incredible work. But anyway, Sanet, the audience is yours.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that nice introduction, Obi.
No, it's only a pleasure. It's only a pleasure.
Only Obi will make accounting sound exciting, eh?
That's funny.
Well, we'll give you a good spin on accounting and business related things to take into consideration in your private practice or whatever kind of business you're looking to open up.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yes. So I'm Sanet Riekart, I'm a chartered accountant and I am from APS Africa, which is Advanced Professional Services Africa. We have been in business since 2011 in different forms, but formally as APS Africa in 2016. And we are focused on the healthcare industry.
Wow, fantastic. A typical day, what does it look like for you? What sort of within the healthcare space, what kind of challenges, problems, scenarios do you encounter on a regular basis when it comes to healthcare professionals? What are some of the things that you have found that we as professionals within the healthcare sector struggle with the most, where the work that you then do comes in handy in solving that?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that largely depends on how long the optometrist has been in business or
Okay.
the healthcare professional has been in business. One of the things that most people struggle with when just starting a business is where do I even start? That's normally what the most questions that we get in terms of that. And then what are the considerations that I need to take into account? So when starting an optometrist practice or a healthcare practice in general,
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of things that you need to register for. Obviously, you need to be registered at your professional board, your professional body.
Yeah.
Yes. And then in terms of the business side that we work on, you need to register your company at CIPC if you are going to trade in an Inc. We'll get to those details later on. You need to register at SARS for income tax and for pay-as-you-earn and for VAT.
Right. So just on that, for those registrations, in Kenya, in Ghana, in Nigeria, they would probably be called something else, but it will most probably be following a similar process when it comes to registering of that particular business from or practice from the business side of things. So
Yes.
because we've got audiences from all over the continent. So I'm fully confident that then what you're mentioning now, it's sort of like the basics of
Yeah,
what you'd have to register.
it's applicable worldwide in different forms or different levels of supporting documents that they need, but the principles are basically the same.
One then has a question of, do you do it on your own, or do you get an accountant or a chartered accountant, like in your case, or an external company to come in and help you with that setting up? Or is it something that you can do on your own?
You can do it on your own. It's not advisable because there are tricks to it. It's time consuming, which is annoying. There's the different platforms that you need to learn how to use, which comes very easily to us because we've been doing it for 100 years, but for someone that doesn't work with it, it's normally frustrating, it takes long. Your risk is of doing something wrong and then we have to come in and fix it in any case, so it's double the work and then it's going to cost more money and all of that. But it is doable. Yeah.
Okay. So once the registration aspect of all these different registration stuff that you have to be doing, what else do you have to sort of like take into consideration if you wanting to set up your optometric practices? Once the professional body stuff is sorted out, the clinical aspect of what type of equipment you want to work with, what type of diagnostic equipment you want to purchase in your practice, from a financial point of view, does the accountant then become someone that does something for you as a once-off, or is it sort of like a retainer where this person then becomes your accountant going forward and they are the ones that are assisting you with all things finances? Or how does that work?
Like we always tell our clients, you specialize in what you do and we specialize in what we do.
Okay.
So although you can do all of these things yourself, it will be full of errors. Like if I try to make my own diagnosis of my eyes, I know I can't see far, but I don't know what exactly to do about that. You know what the problems are, but you won't be able to fix it in such an efficient way. And it's best to surround yourself with people that know exactly what they're doing. So in the different areas of even of your finances, you need to have people there that specialize in those different things. For example, with billing in South Africa, it's quite a complicated process in terms of medical aid and all of those things. So you get a billing specialist to help you with your billing. You don't even get a normal accountant.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people didn't realize that you can actually, each subsection within accounting has specialities. Exactly. Or people that specialize in that particular area.
Yeah.
So it's not just getting one person, but I'm assuming then that the different accounting firms would have all the relevant individuals that specialize in those different subsections, or not necessarily.
It depends on how that company is structured. What we do with ours is we do have people that specialize only in tax and only in accounting. So all the different departments focus on doing what they do, and they do it really, really well and on time and everything like that. Yes.
You find that there will be an optometrist who's sitting in an independent optometric practice or a franchise optometric practice, and they are using a particular billing system in that particular practice. Then when they start saying, I'm going to open up my own practice, and they're thinking of, okay, finances, I need to get all these things setting up, a question that would come would be, well, I don't need to sort of like know all these financial stuff. My billing software tool will do everything for me. Is it as simple as that?
No.
Okay, please elaborate in terms of what are the key aspects that one has to consider when then you have already registered for all these different aspects. Then what's next after that, to the point at which you then determine what billing system you would then be using as an example of the multiple aspects that we can focus on.
Okay. So billing systems only do billing.
Okay.
They submit the claims to the medical aids. They come back to you with what is going to be paid and what your patient is supposed to pay. Some of them integrate with your bank account, and so you can see, okay, the money was received there or not, and then they can do debtors, like send out the monthly statements and get the money in. However, it only does billing.
Okay.
You get some of them that do suppliers and inventory as well, but that's still not the whole picture. So according to the Companies Act and the Income Tax Act, you need to have all your transactions that went through your business bound bank account. That needs to be summarized into financial statements, which then gets submitted to SARS.
Okay.
Okay.
SARS, for the people that are sitting in other parts of the continent, that not South Africa, SARS in South Africa is the South African Revenue System or Service. So that's when we keep on referring to SARS, we mentioning the South African Revenue Service. So in your country, it will then be called something else, but basically it's the revenue service in your particular country. Okay, sorry about that.
Yes, no, it's fine. Okay, so all your transactions in your bank account is not going to be on your billing system. So and you can't draw financial statements from info on a billing system. Yeah, it's got limited info, but it is a crucial part of the financial process.
Wow. Okay, now we sort that out. We have an understanding of, okay, that is a key element of what you need to focus on. Payroll, how does that work?
Also a different system.
Also a different system.
Yes.
What advice would you have for optometrists who are wanting to, or ophthalmologists who want to set up their own practice, and now the key elements comes in payroll? How does that work?
Okay, so there are many ways to do payroll. A lot of the companies that where we take over the accounting, not the company. So many of those kind of try to do it themselves, like on Excel, or they make a pay slip. There are templates for those. You can do it that way. It's not the most efficient way because you don't calculate the pay as you earn correctly then, not necessarily. It doesn't take into consideration leave, things like that. So what we love to do is we like to implement Simple Pay. Simple Pay is a payroll system that integrates into Xero, which is the accounting system. So it even posts the journals in the background.
Okay.
Do you want to know more about the journals?
Yeah. Please go. Don't limit, because I think this conversation is going to spark a lot of questions or ignite a lot of questions from our audience, and that for me is the information that we're sharing today is going to ask them to ask questions about themselves, about their current setup.
Yeah.
So if you feel like you're giving more, that's good. Give more.
Okay. So the payslip information contains the salaries, the pay as you earn that's supposed to be paid on that over to your tax authority, the UIF, depending on if you have it in your country or not, how much of that is paid over, SDL if that's applicable, that's a service skills development levy, sorry, and then those kind of things get totaled together and put onto a report. That report is then submitted with the EMP 201 to SARS.
Okay, what is the
EMP? To your tax.
What is the EMP 201? You must remember, you're speaking with people that have never heard of these terms.
Yes.
And they're going to be sitting with all this information once they're opening up their own practice, and they're going to abdicate the responsibility to the accountant. And then when the business does not function at the level at which it's supposed to be functioning, they don't even know why, because they missed the foundational key elements right at the beginning. And 3 years later, when they're like, we're so busy in our practice, we've seen so many patients, but where's the money?
Yeah.
Is because a lot of small, important key elements were not sort of like prioritized in the beginning. So just remember, with these abbreviations that you're giving, just sort of like give the full name just in the beginning, then you can abbreviate.
Okay, so an EMP 201 is a monthly submission. It's a form that gets submitted to your tax authority, in our case SARS, electronically. It contains the total amount of salaries that you paid, how much was for pay as you earn, how much was for UIF, how much was for STL.
Okay.
Yes, and then that's a monthly submission that has to be made together with the payment to SARS. Okay, now those monthly submissions have to be reconciled twice a year in May and in October. So that reconciliation is just those forms, the 201 forms that's been submitted with the payments. Did you pay the exact amounts that you declared? That's what it's about. So that happens twice a year then.
All right. Some practices have a debtors lady or a debtors person, others don't. Other practices, you'll find that there's an accountant for the practice that the owner works with, but then they will also employ a debtors person who is working in the practice, and then others, the owner is doing it themselves. So what is your advice? Because think of a setup of an optometry practice. You have one examination room. At best you would have 2 or 3 examination rooms, 3 staff members who are interacting with patients in terms of the administrative staff. You don't necessarily have sales or a sales team. The administrative team is the sales team.
Yes.
In majority of optometry practices. So you're looking at a number of, and then you'll have, most importantly, an optical dispenser or the technical team, and then the cleaning lady. So your staff, depending on the size of the practice, would vary from 3 people to 15 people in one practice, depending on the setup of the practice. So with this whole thing of an accountant, debtors lady, or you doing it yourself, depending on the setup, what would you advise people to look at?
Okay, we would definitely not advise you to do it yourself. For the reasons previously mentioned.
Yes.
Billing is a difficult thing. The administration around getting money out of people is it's a nightmare. I hate it. Okay, so you need to work on your business and not in your business. Okay, so you need to focus on how to drive your business forward. What kind of services are you offering? What's making you different from the optometrist down the road? Things like that. So you need to improve on the business side. And
so
then
once you get stuck into nitty-gritty stuff.
If you get stuck in the admin, you are never going to get ahead, and you are going to work 16, 18 hours a day. Yes, I know it's difficult in the beginning when you're starting out, but it's definitely better to get it right straight from the beginning.
I've noticed not only in healthcare, but entrepreneurship, especially in the early stages, owners pay themselves directly from the business instead of setting themselves up as an employee within the business. Can you please clarify how the setup should be working? Here you are opening up your own optometry practice. How should you then set up payroll for yourself? Because a lot of people, I've realized, they don't know the process that they should follow when it comes to determining how then they pay themselves. And then if the practice invoiced a total revenue of 200,000, they have not made 200,000.
No.
So do you mind just unpacking so that they can get a better understanding of what a 200K revenue per month actually can translate to when you start thinking of all the operational costs, payroll, administrative costs, all of that? Do you mind just giving us sort of like a broad overview of that type of setup?
So what I would advise there is to have a budgeting session with your accountant. Okay. So
what is a budgeting session?
Okay, so a budget is where you decide, let's say, which slice of the pie goes where. Okay. So if you get 200,000 in, 200,000 is definitely not all yours. Some of it is VAT, some of it is tax, and then there's the operational costs. So your accountant would have to sit with you, go through all your expenses, and tell you which additional expenses there are that you might not have been aware of, like Okay, you have to pay provisional tax twice a year, in February and in August. You have to pay income tax, all of those things. The VAT that is payable every second month. So yes, it would be nice to have a budgeting session with your accountant so they can show you what you can spend on what. Because the easiest way to get into a cash flow problem is to not do a budget.
That's so important, because not only for the business, but I think for life,
yes,
in general, just for us as human beings.
Yeah.
Without a budget, we will be all over the place, and it can affect so many other elements that can land us in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, and it's exciting when 200,000 comes into the bank account. You kind of want to reward yourself.
Yeah, you worked hard for that money.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine if you don't get it right with the 200,000, you're going to even mess it up more with the 2 million rands
Exactly.
a month. So if you don't get it right at the beginning, and a lot of practices when they start, they don't have the 200K. It's starting off with even less than half of that.
Yeah.
And so even if it was like 50,000,
Yeah.
you still need to have a budget.
Yeah.
And cover all the aspects of it. That's very, very important.
Yes.
Okay, let me give you a scenario. I've been working for someone for the last 6-7 years, and I feel here's an opportunity. There's a mall down the road that's coming up, or in another area or another town, and I have an opportunity to be the optometrist at that particular center. The practice is going to be Obi Malope optometrist, brand new, no clientele, nothing. I just know that here's an opportunity, location is right, I'm going to be next to a big supermarket, there's multiple other shops, the area is booming, so I'm confident with that aspect of why I'm going to open up that practice. But I don't have the 2 million that will be required for me to buy the equipment, the inventory, the stock, setting up of the practice that perhaps could be required, whether it's 2 million or whether it's 600,000, depending on the cost of what's involved. What should I be aware of when now I have to go to the bank or go to family or go to friends? What would your advice be in that scenario where I don't have the 2 million for a practice that is starting from scratch versus, and I think you might end up spending some time here, versus there's a practice, it's been in existence for 20 years, the owner is relocating or is retiring, and they're selling the practice for 3 million, for example. So it already has an existing patient profile or database. It's already operational. They're making however amount of money or revenue per month, 8 staff members, 2 examination rooms. So this one is existing, owner is selling. This one, you don't have anything. You're literally starting from scratch as an independent optometric practice owner. What should my approach be when I need the 2 million to get started? Because I don't have 2 million lying around. What
Yes.
your thought process that can help us around that?
Yeah, the considerations
Yes.
of those. Okay. So let's take the startup.
Okay.
So if you're going to the bank, or any funder would be happy about this. The bank is going to require a lot of information. So they're going to need things like IDs and FICA stuff like proof of residence and all of that. And then they normally require
What's FICA? Remember?
Oh,
Audience?
FICA. Okay, FICA is the Financial Intelligence Center Act.
Okay.
So you even do that when you open a bank account or when you open a cell phone account.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's basically just proof of residence.
Okay.
Yeah, but they ask a lot of things.
Yeah,
then.
that's a lot of information that they want. Yeah.
It's similar to that.
Okay.
Yes, and then for financing, the bank would require a business plan. It would be also very great if you can do a business plan together with your accountant. Okay, because there are things that you need to take into account, things that need to be estimated, like there's how many feet are going to go through the center, more details around the center, your business, what's your marketing going to look like, what's your website going to look like. It's very, very detailed, but it's a great exercise to go through because it really makes you think in detail about your business.
Okay.
Yes, so that's great. And then they would also require, the bank normally requires a cash flow projection and a budget. Okay, so the budget is again, if you estimate your income going to be like this over the next few months, what do you think the expenses are going to be? Those kind of things.
Okay.
So that's your budget, which we'll have to go through, and similar cash flow projection. What do you expect is going to come in, and why do you expect that?
Okay.
Yes. What are those assumptions based on?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very, very nice. I like that.
Yes.
That. So that's
And
with the setup.
Yeah.
Startup. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can. What's great about doing it with your accountant is that it gives it more weight professionally. They make it. Oops. Because they know that we know how to work with these kind of things, and we take the whole picture into the equation. They react favorably to that. Yes.
Now you have done that process. Go to the bank. Do you prefer bank, family, friends, crowdfunding? What's your viewpoint around that? Is the bank still a better option, or it just depends on the scenario that's at play?
It depends a bit on the scenario. In terms of crowdfunding, we haven't done actually. It might be interesting to explore that. Banks generally offer lower interest rates than other small lenders.
Okay.
There are a lot of bridging finance companies available, which can offer you short-term insurance for short-term financing over a few months or a year. I think it goes up to a year or 18 months or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But what we found is that the interest rates can sometimes be really, really high. So that makes it that almost doesn't give the business owner a nice opportunity to actually get going. So we do prefer the banks, but yeah, they do have their things that you need to consider there. They do have their minimum requirements and those kind of things, and they can be tough at times.
So
that's why it's very important to be very prepared to have everything correctly as they ask it, and have it double checked, and have a professional person look at it and ensure that it's good.
Wow. So on that same aspect or consideration regarding the startup, you've gone through the whole process, business plan, everything, bank approves, there's your 2 million, and you start. That's the scenario there. What's different then with an existing business where you are buying it and it is already? Does the bank still, or the lenders, do they still want sort of like the same information? The only difference is that you're now giving them information on what's currently happening. What's different then with regards you then buying the existing practice that has been in operation for 25 years or so?
Okay. What's interesting there is it is different in a way that you wouldn't expect. Even though the company that the practice that you're buying over has been in existence for a couple of years, it largely depends on the exit strategy of that seller. Okay, so I
don't think this is something that people are aware of.
No, not
so
often.
When you say exit strategy,
okay,
please elaborate.
So with an exit strategy, we always advise our clients to have a lawyer look at those.
Okay.
The reason is sometimes, depending on the setup of the practice, if that ophthalmology practice is linked to a specific person, like that's a one-man show as well, if that guy leaves, are you going to get the same amount of income? Probably not. Okay. If it's a different setup where it's got a more general name, not linked to a specific, it's not Obi Malopez practice, it's like Eyecare,
yes,
Pretoria or whatever.
Yes.
and there's a few different ophthalmologists working there,
Okay.
then it's a different setup.
So the bank, you then saying the bank is more favorable when it's not linked to an individual,
Yes.
because then whatever projections that you would then put at play or towards for them, it will not necessarily mean that that's what's going to happen, because
Yes.
they will look at it was doing that because it was based on this person's profile, why people were coming there.
Yeah,
But
and
if
if he leaves,
you
don't have guaranteed income. But now there are different ways out of that as well. If you can have that guy still be there and be in a situation that is called an earn-out,
okay,
where he stays for a few years, maybe works less hours, while you are coming in, and it's sort of a softer transition, then the income is more guaranteed than when it's just one guy that leaves.
That's actually, you're raising a very important point, because I think a lot of the times as optometrists or ophthalmologists, we tend to make that mistake of looking at great venue, great location, beautiful practice. You're looking at the numbers and you're seeing, wow, this is actually a healthy practice. Then you immediately buy it, but that transition phase of a year or two where you're buying it, but that person is like you're saying, an earn-out, where they're still there to do the handover.
Yeah.
That is over a certain period of time, so that patients are not, where's Dr. So-and-so?
Yeah.
And they've left now, then they start leaving because they feel like the standard will not be the same. They don't know you, the trust is not there. So you end up not achieving the similar results that the previous person was earning or was achieving, simply because the transition period between when they were leaving versus when you were taking over was not actually structured properly.
Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely. That can I bring something else into that? From the perspective of the seller, right?
Yeah.
It's also important to make sure what your business looks like. If you are selling a business that's just you and your equipment, you can basically sell the business only for the value of the equipment. If you have set up a business with multiple partners, multiple ophthalmologists working there, proper systems in place that someone else can come in, learn quickly, run it exactly the way you ran it within a month to 3 months. The better you can do that, the higher the value of your practice. So if you want to sell one day, much bigger value than compared to a one-man show. Yes. Wow,
I like that. I'm learning so much today. I'm not even taking notes today because I realize that this is one of those conversations that you're gonna have to keep on playing back, playing back, because of you touching on so many elements. Just a quick one. What's your advice on what percentage of revenue, when we're dealing with the budget aspect, should optometrists or ophthalmologists consider to be what they will earn? So if the practice is turning over 200K, how much of that would you say, what percentage of that should actually be towards payroll?
No, it depends on different amounts. So and it depends on the rest of your structure as well.
So the sitting down with the accountant will unpack what actually would make business sense for you then to say this percentage of the revenue you're allocating towards the payroll, because there will be fixed costs and variable costs that one would have to take into consideration, because you can't say you're allocating this percentage, but this month now you're earning 10,000 rands, and then next month you're earning 20,000 rands. So you can't set it up like that. You
can, but it's risky.
Okay.
It would be better. We like to proactively manage our clients' situations. So instead of capturing your bank statements all at once at the end of the year and presenting you with, you need to pay this much tax, we do it on a monthly basis, so you can see, okay, this guy's going to run into a tax problem, we need to do something.
That's what my next question was, or one of the questions that I had was, in a situation where you have made peace with the fact that you've got an accountant and that's your person going forward.
Yeah.
Or you've got a debtors lady or a person, let me not say lady, apologies for associating a role with agenda. It's not how it works, but you guys get what I'm saying. How often should one be seeing or communicating with the accountant as a new practice owner? Is it, like you say, is it stuff that you're just communicating via email, or is it a one-on-one where you're sitting down, you're discussing, you're constantly revisiting that plan that you had? Or is it a once-off? There's the budget that we discussed, there's the business plan, and those 2 dates that you mentioned where we need to submit stuff, is it the only time where we now need to see our accountant? How often should the optometrist or ophthalmologist be sitting down with their accountant?
There's a funny name for that. They call it a submarine accountant. So the accountant only surfaces when
there's issues with tax and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's what happens, but that's not what's supposed to be happening.
No. I think it's been like that for many years in the industry, but we are trying to up the level of service and make it's less of a grudge purchase, and actually where you enjoy seeing your accountant because they add so much value to your life and to your business. So what we like to do is to we send you monthly profit and loss statements and balance sheets so that you can have the figures in front of you. You get a better idea of what's going on, and then quarterly would be good to see your accountant, even if it's just a quick half an hour Zoom, to just go through a management report and see what's going where, what do we need to look at, where do we see problems arising that we can proactively manage. So that's very helpful. Obviously at year end, when your financial statements are presented with your tax, but normally that then doesn't come as a big surprise because we have been monitoring the situation and discussing it over the course of the year. That would be for most average sized practices. For bigger practices, it might even be necessary to have a monthly meeting with your accountant to see how things go, because many people involved, big amounts of involved, things can run away quickly. So we do that on a monthly basis, especially when it's a new client. We like to see them every month if it's a big business, otherwise quarterly. And then after everything has been implemented and things are running smoothly and we are not concerned about the client anymore, then we might just do a monthly where we send the report and we do a little video with it explaining what's going on and what they need to look at, which they can then view in their own time. But it's good to have proper communication, not just once a year.
All right, so what you're then saying is that don't just depend on the accounting softwares and tools that are available for you to think that, oh, I can just rely on my accounting software that I'm using for billing, for payroll, for this, and pull up the reports there myself and just sit down and analyze the data myself. You still advise that people to still sit down with the accountant, whether it's a quarterly basis or depending on the size of the practice or the business, as regularly as need be, to be able to make sure that we're not deviating from the plan of action and that the business is actually healthy. It's not sort of like going through these ups and downs, but you don't even know why. Okay.
That being said, don't send your accountant 500 emails.
Okay.
It will have an effect on the efficiency of the service that you're getting.
Okay.
We try to have, of course, you can ask any time when something is urgent, but don't abuse that, because then your accountants might be less reluctant to engage all the time. But we don't find we have that problem often. If we proactively manage the communication and we say, okay, we're going to see you every quarter or every month, that tends to work well for most people.
Okay.
And businesses do go through, seasonal changes or whatever relating, depending on your type of business. So then you can see, okay, it's expected, not an issue.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, here's optometric business owner. They've got one location. It's been running for 5 years. they want to open up a secondary location, or they've got 2 locations, both seem to be healthy. This one is not helping the other business to survive. Both practices are very healthy, and the optometrist or ophthalmologist wants to open up a 3rd or a secondary practice. What is it that they need to be aware of from a financial point of view?
Okay.
And is it easier? You know, like they always say with kids, it's a good friend of mine said that it's easier when you start having 4 or 5 kids versus when you just have your first child.
Yeah.
They were saying that with the number 4 and 5 are actually easier to deal with than number 1 and 2.
They raise themselves.
They raise themselves. So what is it that eye care professionals need to be aware of or look out for when it comes to expansion from a financial point of view, when they want to buy or purchase or set up that 2nd or 3rd optometric or ophthalmology practice?
Okay, I would say that cash flow is your biggest concern there.
Okay.
So once again, a good budgeting and cash flow session with your accountant would be advisable to determine exactly what is going to need to be paid, how long is it going to take for the amounts to come in, and do you need financing to cover that period while you're waiting for it to become cash flow positive, when you receive more money than you're spending.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a key element. Optometrists who are currently working for someone else, but with a vision to one day open up their own, what advice would you have for them now that they can start preparing themselves? Perhaps this is someone who they've just been showing up for work and seeing patients, knocking off, going home, and it's a repeat every single day. But deep down, this person wants to open up their practice one day, 3 to 5 years later. So from a financial point of view, what advice do you have for that type of individual in them preparing themselves for that future self that they envisioning for themselves?
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a personality type situation. With owning your own business is exciting, it's interesting, it gives you exposure to lots of different fields. You have to learn about marketing, you have to learn about many things of running a business. But it's not for everyone, because it's a lot of responsibility as well. So you need to determine, do you want to have this additional administrative and responsibility load, or are you fine with just doing what you want to do, just focusing on the eyes?
Okay.
Yeah. Then for someone that is interested and wants to expand and enjoys the entrepreneurial process, yes, what can we advise you there? Obviously be on top of your game in terms of your speciality.
Okay.
And then proper research. Look into the areas that are of interest to you. Speak to other optometrists that have started businesses. Speak to different accountants to find out what would be needed. Speak to different software providers to see which software you're going to use, and have demos, let them, so that you can see what you're comfortable with. There are many interesting things that are happening right now that, yes. I
like that, because that does not mean that that which you are exposed to in your current practice is necessarily the best.
Yeah.
You find that there's multiple other tools that are readily available that can actually help you, that are functioning better or producing better results than the one that you're currently exposed to. When one is looking for an accountant, what are the must-haves that one has to, sort of like a checklist? If now I'm sitting there, I'm watching this interview, and I'm going to be like, okay, I'm good to go. I need to meet up with an accountant. What is the checklist or criteria that they need to sign off on in terms of, my accountant needs to be able to do the following? Okay. What is that checklist looking like?
Okay. So I would definitely say that you need to be able to click on a personal level.
Okay.
Okay,
It's important.
Yes, it is. Otherwise, you're not going to enjoy working with those people, and you get a feel for a person when you speak to them
Wow.
one-on-one as well. If you get the idea that you're just going to be another number and you're not going to get the attention that you need, that would be a sign to maybe walk away and look for someone else. It's very important to have your accountants be aware of the latest developments in tech. Okay. There are so many efficiencies that can be created with tech these days that shouldn't be feared. In situations where you can optimize your efficiency in your administration, your admin personnel can then be focused on providing a good customer experience, good client experience.
I love that.
Instead of bogging them down with mountains of paperwork or computer work, they can focus on the client and do on the patient and deliver a good service there. Yes, that's nice. It's not something to be feared. It's something to take the advantage on.
And I think that's the challenge. That's the challenge that a lot of practices have. That they're not unlocking the full potential of their staff members because their staff members are busy with things that I don't want to say that don't contribute to that client experience.
Yes.
That consumer experience that they should be focusing on, because they're bombarded with all this admin that they hate doing and they don't have a passion for it. They don't feel like it's their responsibility, and the stuff that they should be doing that can actually elevate to the practice, they don't get to spend enough time on that.
Yeah.
And that's because there's not enough, or there's not proper systems, processes, procedures, protocols from an administrative point of view,
yes,
which then places a burden on the clinical and the business aspect of things.
Yes.
So I like your approach. I like that.
Yes. And then what would also be great is obviously communication. If you are only going to see them once a year, if that's what you're comfortable with, it's fine. If you want to proactively manage your business, it's not ideal. And then to look for an accountant that, and there are many of those these days, but the most, it's not that prevalent yet. But your accountant needs to look a little bit wider than accounting and tax. Okay, like I'm saying, you can pick up inefficiencies in administration and normal business processes by just looking at different reports. If your accountant is not looking at your debtors age analysis or your supplier age analysis or your stock and picking up issues there, and then give you advice on how to fix your processes and procedures indoors to to fix those and to prevent problems down the line, that's not ideal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like that. I don't think people are aware of.
We like a holistic approach.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, an accountant should not be someone who's just giving you reporting, but it's someone that should be broad-based in their thinking, that as they're giving you the reports, they're able to help you strategize, plan, structure, so that you then know that this is where the business is at, this is where the business is supposed to be at, and what are the stumbling blocks preventing that business from operating at the level of that it's supposed to be operating.
Yes.
And then what can we then do to change that?
Yeah.
So I think if you have an accountant that can be able to help you think in that direction, that makes your life much easier as well, and it will help you become a better business owner at the end of the day.
Yes, and it's also about quality of life, because you don't want to spend 18 hours a day on things that are not efficient, that are not actually driving your business forward, that's wasting your time you could have spent with your family or friends or whatever. You want to take your business to the next level in a way that is sustainable and that you can still have a good quality of life.
Love that.
Yeah.
How often, because you covering the financial aspect of things, then there's also the legal aspect of things. Is there a time where the owner sits down with the legal person and the finance person all together in one room?
Yes.
and even though these two are not from the same company, how often then should that process, or this is a process that happens right in the beginning?
That depends on on your structure and what your structure looks like and what your income looks like.
Okay.
We would say that up to a point of 720,000 rand, you can still be income now. You can still be in a sole prop position,
Okay.
where it's just you, and it's not a legal it's not an entity like a company.
Okay.
So you guys need to practice in an Inc. Based on the HPCSA rules. So for that needs to be incorporated. Okay, it's a CIPC process. It's a company where you are still liable.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So that can still be done by normal accountants.
Okay.
When the income then gets exponentially higher, so the Inc is good for managing one salary,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe two. If the income is too high for that, then you start to need additional structures, and then that's where the lawyers then come in.
Okay.
And they set up interesting structures on based on your personal situation.
Okay.
But that would involve management companies, holding companies, trusts, things like that.
Okay.
Yes, and you definitely need good lawyers for that, because you want that to be very solid in terms of estate planning, in terms of litigation risk, and in terms of optimizing your tax expenses, but it should not be tax evasive.
Okay.
So if the documents in the background is not set up properly, it can come across as tax evasion.
Okay.
So that's not what you're doing.
And that's a process where the legal person or personnel handle that type of stuff.
Yes.
Not necessarily the accountant side
Yeah.
of things.
That's one of those fields where we say, okay, stick to your speciality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. For the practice that's only turning over, or actually it doesn't really matter. Let me ask you a different question. Tax, setting up, here you were as employee, now you have transitioned to become an employer.
Mm-hmm.
The registration processes that take place,
Mm-hmm.
you do that right in the beginning when it comes to the type of tax that you then register for as a business. Do you mind just touching a little bit on how does tax work for healthcare professionals?
Yes. Okay. So when you register a company, it's automatically getting registered at your tax authority in SA at least,
Mm-hmm.
for income tax and provisional tax.
Okay.
So you don't need to do that separately.
Separately.
You do need to register separately for pay as you earn and for VAT.
Okay.
Yes. So
What are the consequences of you not registering for that?
it depends
For
on
pay as you earn, or
if they pick you up or not. But they often do, so I wouldn't advise that. No, it's penalties, it's interest, it's very lengthy audits, like please submit the last 5 years' expenses with the invoices and all of
so
that.
basically do it right from the
Yeah.
onset, and it becomes much easier.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to the finances and the legal stuff, don't cut corners.
Mm.
Don't cut corners. In actual fact, any aspect of your practice, don't cut corners. If you want your business to literally thrive, don't cut corners. That's one of the areas that I've realized that the minute you start cutting corners, you opening up or you're exposing your practice for unnecessary risks that already having a business is risky enough. But now cutting corners and doing things that you're not supposed to be doing will just fast track that process of your business going under one day.
Yeah.
So
And that goes right down to the billing person. Like I said, I'm not a billing expert. You need a billing expert to do your billing.
yeah.
Otherwise, many of them can get rejected. Then you don't get your money. Your debtors are going to be too high. It's an area of specialization that you need a proper trained person or bureau for.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
And it's like that with the accounting as well. We have so many businesses that come to us that where we need to do catch-up work, like where the last 3 years doesn't have tax returns or transactions processed, financial statements, things like that. it's so expensive then to have to fix it a 3-year or 5-year periods worth of stuff. So yeah, just rather get it right from the beginning, and then you know what your expenses are going to look like. It's so much more manageable then.
Wow. I've thoroughly enjoyed this.
I'm glad. I mean,
I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I'm thinking about the people that are watching this. What's going through their mind right now?
Yeah.
I've been running my own businesses for the last 10 years or so, and a lot of what you're talking about, I've experienced. But for the people that are watching who are running optometry practices or ophthalmology practices, a lot of what you're saying, it's starting to make sense for a lot of people. And those that are aspiring to have those practices one day very soon, they gonna do it right because of this conversation that we just had. So I'm super excited. I think this will turn into something bigger, because the value that I just personally got from listening to you right now, it's so much that I can't wait to just walk into a practice and ask them, are you doing this, are you doing this, are you doing this, are you doing this, are you doing this? That's how much excitement I really have right now. How can people reach you? How can people reach you? How can people that are watching this are going to want to reach out to you and say, okay, Sanet, I've got questions, I need help with this. Where can people reach you?
You can go to our website and have a look there. It's aps-africa.com.
I'll put it in the
hyphenate, yes.
I'll put it as part of the link as well.
Yes, and you can have a look at all our interviews and the things we are talking about on LinkedIn as well.
Fantastic.
Yes, welcome to contact us on any of those.
Fantastic. This was really fun. I hope you enjoyed that. And are you guys doing any work outside of South Africa?
We really want to.
You really want to. So this
we just got our first Namibian one. So
wow.
Yeah,
and
great.
We've got audiences from Namibia, Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, Morocco, Zambia, Angola, Botswana. So definitely reach out to Sanet and her team. They do incredible work. That's how I came across her as well. It was through the wonderful work she was doing on LinkedIn, and I was like, wow, this is absolutely amazing. And it just made sense that iAfrica Media would be blessed to have you be able to do this for us, because many young people are connected with this platform and they're aspiring to achieve greatness. But you can't do anything great if the foundation is not right. And I think today's conversation, you are helping us with that foundation, the elements that are critical to that foundation, and the finances play one of the biggest roles in that structure that's going to go up. So if your finances, the legal aspect is not right, everything else that's going to be built on top of that, it's going to be faulty. And when it collapses, to fix it, like you said, it's an expensive exercise, and it can actually even land you into trouble. So I really hope you have thoroughly enjoyed today's conversation. If you're not connected with iAfrica Media, please do so right now. We are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, we are on LinkedIn. Follow our pages, connect with us there, and most importantly, subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's amazing content. Watch out for more content like this that is going to go beyond the optometric examination room and help you with regards to the structures that are critical to your optometric or ophthalmology practice. Until the next episode, stay blessed, stay strong, and don't forget, give your patients the utmost best of what they deserve. We are primary eye care givers, and so we need to step up, level up, to ensure that every single person that walks into our practices leaves there better, not just by buying a pair of glasses or getting surgery, but that they leave as better human beings because of the passion, the enthusiasm, the commitment that we have towards excellence. Stay connected, guys. Sanet, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Obi.